Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrinu Deva Bhadram Pashye Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Tushtavagam Sastanubhi Vyashema Deva Hitai Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho Arishthanemihi Swasti no Brihaspati'r Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, O gods, may we hear auspicious words with our ears while engaged in sacrifices. May we see auspicious things with our eyes while praising the gods with steady limbs. May we enjoy a life that is beneficial to the gods. May Indra of ancient fame be auspicious to us. May the all-knowing Pusha, god of the earth, be propitious to us. May Garuda, the destroyer of evil, be well disposed towards us. May Brihaspati ensure our welfare. Om, peace, peace, peace. So today, we're going to go to the 7th mantra of the second section of the 3rd chapter. You remember the Mundaka Upanishad has 3 chapters called Mundakas, and each chapter has 2 sections. So we are in the final chapter and the final section. And there, the 7th mantra. What's going on here? The results of enlightenment. When you realize that one ultimate reality is you yourself. Remember how the whole Upanishad started. Shaunaka goes to the master, Angira, who was a rishi, and asks him this question: Sir, what is that by knowing which everything is known? One thing by knowing which everything is known. And then he teaches him about Brahman. If you realize this, if you realize that you are not this body-mind, but you are this one existence consciousness bliss, which is appearing as this entire world, including the body-mind, then that is enlightenment, and the result of that is freedom, moksha. Now, freedom, before I get into the mantra itself, just a little background about what they're going to talk about. From the perspective of the enlightened one, freedom means realizing that you are Brahman, your existence, consciousness, bliss, and you always have been. It's something mysteriously we did not see, and now we do see. Once we do see that we are Brahman, we realize that we have actually never been in bondage. We have always been free, because the nature of Brahman is freedom. It is free always. It's never that Brahman was in bondage, was in somehow, involved in karma, in birth and death and suffering and seeking. No, all of that will disappear in a flash, and you realize your own limitless nature, which is the reality. However, remember that once you realize that, it doesn't mean that the world will disappear or the body-mind will disappear. Everything will be there. Everything will continue to appear. But the real nature will now be known. It's not that the world will make the world disappear by this realization, but the real nature of everything in the world, that they are all appearances on this ground of Brahman, the ultimate reality, that will be understood. Right now, we do not understand the reality of the things. We think we are seeing this real world. Actually, in a curious reversal, from an Advaitic perspective, the world is supposed to be dream-like, but actually, the way we are living, from the perspective of the enlightened one, we are the ones who are living in a dream. We are the ones who are not fully awake. Enlightenment is being awake. We are asleep, or we are dreaming, or we are sleepwalking through life. When we awaken to reality. So that is enlightenment and freedom from the ultimate perspective, from the perspective of the enlightened one. However, from our perspective and from the perspective of Vedanta philosophy and all of that, we still see the enlightened one. So from our perspective, what has happened to this enlightened one? So there are these 2 terms, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. Jivan Mukti means free while living, and Videha Mukti means bodiless freedom. free while living, bodiless freedom. So the enlightened one is free, has attained freedom. But still, we see the enlightened one. It continues. Our guru, our enlightened master is there. That we see the same person. So now we will call that person Jivan Mukta, free while living. We're still existing in the body, still carrying on with the life, but knows his or her oneness with Brahman, knows that I am that. And one day this particular body, the body of the enlightened one, will fall. It will die. And then we say that same enlightened one who was living as the free, Jivan Mukta, has now attained to Videha Mukti, bodiless freedom. No longer will there be any birth and death for this enlightened one. From our perspective, remember, so I have said three things here. One is freedom, enlightenment and freedom from the enlightened one's perspective, the ultimate perspective, who will say that there is really no such thing as living and free while living, and then bodiless freedom. You are Brahman, I am Brahman, that is the truth. That is the reality. There is one timeless, limitless reality, and that's my real nature or your real nature. That's from the enlightened one's perspective. That's one perspective on moksha, freedom, which is the real, ultimately what Advaita Vedanta wants to say. However, what we're going to discuss here is from our perspective. From our perspective, there are two other terms. That is Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti. While the enlightened one lives as our spiritual master or teacher, we say Jivan Mukta. And there, this question is again and again raised or discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter itself, Arjuna asks this question. If I become enlightened, if someone becomes enlightened, what's it like? Sthita Pragya, one whose realization, I am Brahman, is stabilized. What is that person like? So he's talking about Jivan Mukti, free while living. The term used in the Gita is Sthita Pragya, one whose enlightenment or wisdom is stabilized. Another term used in the Bhagavad Gita is Gunatita, one who has gone beyond the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Basically, one who has gone beyond Maya. So these things are discussed. So these are all discussions of Jivan Mukti. And then what happens when the body dies? When the body dies, we say that that one who was enlightened and was the free while living is now has attained bodiless liberation, is one with Brahman, has merged with Brahman or one with Brahman, all from our perspective. From the enlightened one's perspective, this difference is childish because this difference depends on the body. Notice, free while living, bodiless freedom. The crux is the body. When the body is living, we say, oh, there is the one who is our spiritual master, the great one, the Rishi, Angiras, or now the student. Hopefully, Shaunaka, after all of this, is enlightened. So Shaunaka is now attained enlightenment. So he is free while living. And when that body dies, Videha Mukti, free, bodiless freedom. But from the enlightened one's perspective, no such thing. Because the appearance of the body and the disappearance of the body, the appearance of one body and the disappearance of one body makes no difference to the enlightened one. Okay. Now, what we are going to read now, from now till the end of the Upanishad, is a description of Videha Mukti, the bodiless liberation. Again, understanding from, it's an explanation for us, from a relative plane. Not from the ultimate plane. From the ultimate perspective, the ultimate plane, it is Brahman only. All right. I'm just repeating myself at this point now. So let me just go to the mantra itself. What is this bodiless freedom? Gata kala panchadasha pratishtha devascha sarve pratidevatasu karmani vijnanamayascha atma pare abhyaye sarva eki bhavanti. A beautiful mantra which says, I'm reading the translation from Gambhiranandaji, Swami Gambhirananda's translation. To their sources repair the 15 constituents of the body, and to their respective gods go all the gods of the senses. The karmas and the soul appearing, like the intellect, all become unified in the supreme undecaying. Okay, what does that mean? What this mantra will tell us is what happens at the death of the enlightened one and how is it different from the death of the unenlightened one. The difference is this. Remember, the Vedantic idea is that individual beings like us have three constituents, basically. The physical body, the subtle body, and I'm including in that the causal body also because it will not make a difference to our discussion at this point. The physical body, the subtle body, and pure consciousness. That your real nature is pure consciousness, the Atman. The physical body is this one, that which is born and it dies. In each of our lives, we have a different physical body. That's what we call a life, the birth of a body and the death of a particular body. So we have many such lives. When we get many such bodies, from birth to death, these bodies are born, they age and they die, and that's a life. And then we get another body and it ages and it dies, that's another life. But what is it that goes from body to body? It's the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. The subtle body does not die with the death of the body. It was not born with the birth of the body. It came from past lives and it existing in this life, having all these experiences, it will go on to future lives. The subtle body, what is it made of? It's made of, you can divide it in multiple ways. One way of understanding is, it is the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. The prana, the vital sheath. That's why when the physical body dies, we say, when the subtle body leaves, we say the prana has gone. This is exactly how death is described in many Indian languages. Prana has left the body, but which means the pranamaya kosha. Subtle body has left the physical body. Physical body can no longer sustain life. It's damaged beyond any repair. So it dies. What does it mean dies? Subtle body leaves the physical body. So, like, generally in English, we might say the soul has left the body. In English, the term used is, he has given up the ghost. That's the term used in English. He has given up the ghost. The ghost is the subtle body. The Indian term, Vedantic or all Indian term would be, the ghost has given up the body. Physical body has been given up. You are giving up the physical body, and at the death, our death, we go on to other experiences and newer physical bodies. So, physical body, subtle body, and there is a causal body. Let's keep it at the back of our mind. If you want to divide it in terms of the 5 koshas, the physical body is the Annamaya kosha, the food sheath. The subtle body is the Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. The vital sheath, the mental sheath, and the intellect sheath. Sheath, S-H-E-A-T-H. And the causal body is the Anandamaya kosha. And they are all bodies. They are all bodies. They are not you. They are not you. Just as I have a cloth outside and a shirt and an inner garment, a vest, similarly, the 3 bodies, the physical body is like the outer cloth, the shirt is like the inner cloth, it's like the inner body, subtle body, and then the causal body is like the innermost vest. So none of them are me, similarly. But when the physical body dies, I, the sentient being, who am pure consciousness or Atman, limited by one causal body and one subtle body. That is the Anandamaya Kosha, the Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya. This bundle will leave the dying or dead body and go on to other. So that is called Utkramana. Many terms are there. Transmigration. Utkramana in Sanskrit. Transmigration. This is an idea accepted by all religions, both Abrahamic and Indian religions. Only thing is, Indian religions will say that this soul, the ghost, the causal body and subtle body, they will go and enter into newer physical bodies. So that's all. But every religion will say something survives the death of the physical body. Otherwise, you can't have a religion. If you are all dead, go back to dust, that's it, the end of the game, then there's no point in religion. You just have to be a little patient, a little stoic, wait for a few more years, then we are dead, that's it. What's the point of all this philosophy and all that? But no, all the religions of the world are agreed on this point, that at death, something dramatic happens and you leave the dead or dying body. go to heaven, hell, and then we are reborn in many ways and carry on this journey of spiritual evolution. We'll get newer and newer bodies. It's like if the physical device is damaged, like your iPad or laptop, but your data is backed up to the cloud. Ah, so then you will, when you get a new device, new phone or iPad or computer, then you can download. If you have backed up the data properly, then you can download it to that device. So that's a new birth. Similarly, our subtle body can take up newer bodies. And this is the story for all of us. This is what has been happening to us lifetime after lifetime. By the way, just a little aside here. I was reading in an interesting news report a few days ago that the neuroscientists, doctors are surprised at what happens in the brain at the point of death. They're surprised. The new studies are going on. They're surprised at what is happening in the brain at the point of death. What is happening? That there is a tremendous burst of activity in the dying brain. You would normally expect slowing down and then stopping of activity. Just the opposite happens at the point of death. Before the brain finally dies, it goes into like a tremendous activity. And that, the serotonin, dopamine, these are released. There are tremendous activities in cognitive capacity, things which you'd not expect a dying person. Most of them are either seriously ill or have been badly injured or something for some reason that they are dying. And yet the brain suddenly kicks into high activity and positive activity. So the neurotransmitters which indicate a feeling of goodness, happiness, peace, fulfillment, those appear in the brain at that last moment, a kind of peace. And also memories and cognitive functions, they all suddenly they light up those areas for a short while, then everything shuts down. Now, they have no idea why this is happening. It shouldn't happen. What is the expectation of doctors and biologists and neuroscientists? Brain is dying, body is dying, so slowly all activities should shut down. That's it. Why this? What is the purpose? What's going on? I don't know what's going on, but it seems to be the neural correlate of utkramana, transmigration. I have a feeling that it's the subtle body leaving the physical body. And so like the rocket taking off, you'll see when the rocket is launched, you will see tremendous activity going on there. So we take off from the this dying physical body. And so the physical body, I guess, this is all my speculation. The brain and the nervous system, they push us into that orbit, and then they collapse. Now, then what happens? Back to the Upanishad. In the case of all of us, except the enlightened ones, in the case of all of us, what happens? The physical body dies and goes back to physical nature. It goes back to earth and fire and water and space, and it just goes back, merges back. Whether you burn it or you bury it in the ground, or like the Parsis, they would expose it to, interestingly, the Parsis would expose it in the towers of dead, and the vultures would come and eat the bodies. The Tibetan Buddhists also used to do that in the highlands of Tibet. In every case, it goes back to nature. The elements which compose the physical body, they fall apart and they go back to nature, physical nature. But the subtle body continues. Subtle body means my vital sheath, mind sheath, intellect sheath, and the causal body, the bliss sheath, they continue. They are the vessel in which you, the consciousness, is reflected, and you continue into further lives. All right, this is the general story for everybody. Now the Upanishad will tell us what is the speciality for enlightened ones. What happens to them? What happens to them is this. At the point of bodily liberation, remember, in their case, it is not transmigration. In their case, it is not leaving the body and going to some other world, new lives. No, that's at an end. It's finished. The game of life is over for them. Like this game of life and death, this cycle of life and death is over for them. Then what happens? At the point of death, for the enlightened one, physical body dies just like everybody else. Physical body dies. However, the subtle body and the causal body, they also merge back into nature. There is no further use, no one there who will use them, no one who will leave with the rocket ship and go to another loka, another life. No. Because the one who was using this physical body, subtle body, causal body, has now realized, I am the limitless Brahman. There is no individuality left there which wants to, go further in spiritual evolution. It's finished. You have become the unlimited. You have become one with the infinite. So what happens? The Upanishad will say, the physical body will merge with the physical cosmos. The subtle body will merge with the cosmic mind. And the causal body also, it is implied, not mentioned. Causal body will merge with Maya, with the cosmic causal body. In the terms used in Vedanta, the individual physical body will merge with the Virat, the vast physical body of Ishvara, of God. The individual mind, subtle body, will merge with Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind. And the individual causal body will fade away into Maya. Then what remains? Nothing of the individuality, but what remains is the infinite. The point of enlightenment, you have already realized that you are the infinite. You remain as you are. From your perspective, from the enlightened one's perspective, all of this does not matter. Okay. Let me now read the Upanishad. We will see. But the language of the Upanishad is a little abstruse. Gata Kala Panchadasha Pratishtha, very poetic. The 15 constituents go back to their basis. 15 constituents of what? The physical body and the subtle body. The Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and also the Anandamaya. Physical body and the subtle body, they go back to from where they had come. Where are the physical body? Where does it come from? This physical universe. And that happens for the unenlightened beings also. The physical body goes back to the physical universe. But the subtle body, the data, it retains its integrity. It will go on to newer manifestations. But for the enlightened one, that also is not retained. It goes back to the subtle universe, the cosmic mind. Our subtle body merges back into the subtle universe, and the causal body into Maya. So, Gata Kala Panchadasha Pratishtha. Now, what is this Panchadasha Pratishtha? 15 bases of the body mind. This refers to another Upanishad called the Prashna Upanishad. So that's why it's a little arcane. The usual way we would have expected, is the way I just explained it. Physical body is the food sheet, Annamaya, and the subtle body is Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. So that should have been the language, but that's much later systematization. Remember, when we are studying the Upanishads, we are going back to the very foundations of Vedanta. It was not as systematic at that time. Every Upanishad had a way of, similar ways, but different ways of understanding the world, the body, the mind, and different terms for the Atman, for Brahman. In this Upanishad, the term for the ultimate reality is Akshara, the undecaying. So, here it is referring to another such very ancient way of classifying the body-mind. Panchadasha Pratishtha. In the Prashna Upanishad, which is basically, literally it means the Upanishad of questions. So there the students ask questions. I think there are 6 questions. In the final question, in the 6th question, the constituents of the body mind are discussed. And they talk about the 15, actually 16 constituents. And I'm not going into a list of those. I can tell you, but it will not make much sense, because you will see some similarities and you will see some strangeness there. Just for completion, since the word 15 has been used, let me just rattle out the names. I'm reading from the Prashna Upanishad. In the 6th section, 4th mantra of the Prashna Upanishad, it is said the constituents are prana, shraddha. Prana is not translated. Prana, and then shraddha, which is faith. Then kham, which means space. Then vayu, which means air. Then jyoti, which means light. Then or fire. Then apa, which means water. Then prithvi, which means earth. Then indriya, senses, the host of senses. Then mana, mind. Then annam, food. And then viryam, vigor. Then tapaha, that is austerity or self-control. Then mantraha, mantras, the Vedic texts. Then karma, the rituals, the Vedic rituals. Loka, the worlds. And lokeshu cha namacha. And then the names are in the worlds. So this is a rather strange list. Some of it is familiar. You would expect what are things made of? Yes, they are made of earth and water and fire and air and space. But then also these other terms are introduced. Anyway, but for our purpose, what all it means is the constituents of the body mind go back to the sources. What are the sources? Cosmos, universe. But remember, Vedantic idea of cosmos is not just physical cosmos, also the mental cosmos, mind. So the body goes back to physical cosmos, mind goes back to the cosmic mind. That's all it means here. Devascha sarve pratidevatasu. Literally, if you translate, it means the gods go back to their source divinities. What it means is this. Again, this you can find those who have studied the Vedanta Sara. When the body mind was being discussed, you will see all the organs, constituents of the body have their own presiding devatas, gods with small g, gods with small g. So they have their divine powers behind all our sensory powers. There's a divinity behind the power of vision. There's a divinity behind the power of hearing. There's a divinity behind which gives power to taste and touch and smell, the power of walking and talking and so speech. It's fire, Agni. So we say he speaks fire. So like that. So these are the various Vedic gods have, they power the body mind. So they are all behind the various powers we have got. Now, what does it mean? Do the gods come and reside in our body? Not in that sense. Their powers operate in us, but their source divinities are there who give that power to all sentient beings. So these divinities, they are tremendously powerful beings, and they give their powers, like superpowers, they give those powers to us. So what it means is these powers, which enable us to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, walk, talk, think, remember, enjoy, suffer, give us energy, the prana, all of this which powers our body mind, these powers go back to their source deities. They go back to their source devatas. They go back to their source gods. Work is done. The game of life is over. The enlightened one has finished successfully. Does not require all this anymore. So it's all returned back to the sources. Unenlightened one will continue with these things. We'll just get a new body, that's all. Devascha sarve pratidevatasu. Very nice language. Then karmani vijnanamayascha atma pare abhyaye sarva eki bhavanti. Beautiful. Karmani. What about the stock of karma? Every being, including the enlightened being, has to his or her credit a lot of karma. Now, this karma means the actions we have done in the past, and so in a potential form they are there. They will give results, and the results of these actions come up in our lives as our past karma fructifies. A part of that karma has already started giving result. That's your life and that's my life. This is called prarabdha karma, which is well begun, which is already activated karma. So that will continue to give results in the enlightened one's life, just like it is giving results in our life. When that part is over, this life will be over. The unenlightened ones will go on propelled by the stock of karma into other lives. So the stock of karma is called sanchita karma, literally stocked up karma. Sanchita, saved karma. Accumulated is a good word. Accumulated karma. That's what happens to the unenlightened person. The activated karma is exhausted for this life, body dies, and then the accumulated karma, a part of it will become activated and give rise to further lives. But for the enlightened one, what will happen? The activated karma, prarabdha karma, will be exhausted, and the body of the enlightened one, who is called Jivan Mukta, free while living. The body will die. And that enlightened one goes into bodiless liberation, Videha Mukti. But one might question, what about the Sanchita karma, accumulated karma of the enlightened one? That also disappears back into Brahman, into Ishvara, into the Maya of Ishvara. It's withdrawn, it's destroyed. Why is it destroyed, one might ask? There are two reasons, one general reason, one specific reason. The general reason is the whole point of karma, bodies, universe, all of this is to lead to enlightenment and freedom. That's the Vedantic worldview or universe view. Why is anything, all of this happening? It's all a spiritual evolution leading us to freedom. If you have attained this freedom, then you don't need this paraphernalia anymore. So all of it is returned back to the locker rooms. The game is over. Therefore, karma, if some karma is remaining in your account, that also is returned, sent back to the owner, which is Ishvara or God, and will not give this. There is nobody to give the results to that accumulated karma, nor is it necessary. What was the point of this karma anyway? Spiritual evolution and freedom. Well, you have attained spiritual evolution and freedom. No need of karma anymore. This is the general answer. The specific answer is karma requires a doer, karta, an individualized doer, somebody who's associated with this particular subtle body. I am this person. I have done such good things and such bad things. And in the next life, I will get the results of those good things and bad things. But if I am not identified with this subtle body, with the manomaya, pranamaya, vijnanamaya, I don't think of myself as a person anymore. In that case, to whom will the karma go? Where is the target? Where is the recipient of that karma? Who will utilize, who will enjoy and suffer? There's nobody left there. There is the beautiful imagery of the Buddha upon attaining enlightenment, when, all kinds of temptations and terrors were thrown at him. It is said they all transformed into flowers, like a shower of flowers for him. And that's what happens to the enlightened being. None of this will, there's nobody to reward or punish. Reward, punishment is not the right terms to give enjoyment or suffering to. There's nobody left there. You're just the infant. Brahman alone exists. Therefore, in the absence of a karta, doer, agent, karma has no meaning at all. So there will be no further karma for the enlightened one. So karmani, vijnanamayascha atma, all karmas, accumulated karmas, fade back into maya. Vijnanamayascha atma. What is this vijnanamaya atma? Atma is pure consciousness. Now what happens in pure consciousness in each of us, that limitless pure consciousness, Brahman, is reflected in the Vijnanamaya kosha, or the intellect sheet, or more generally in the subtle body, more generally in the mind. It's reflected as the reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa. Pure consciousness reflected in the mind is called reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa. And that's what we are experiencing right now as I am this conscious being. I am aware, and here is the mind with thoughts and feelings and ideas and personality. And we are all distinct from each other. Why are we all distinct from each other? Our Vijnanamaya is different. Each one of us has a different Vijnanamaya kosha. And I, the limitless consciousness, am reflected in this particular Vijnanamaya kosha. And I think I am Swami, and there, and there, and there, in all of these places, the same limitless pure consciousness reflected in each of those Vijnanamaya koshas appears as a distinct sentient being. So these distinct sentient beings, Jiva Chaitanya or Jivatma, a sentient being, is called Vijnanamaya Atma here. Vijnanamaya Atma. Basically, pure consciousness reflected in the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the sentient being. Always we ask in Vedanta, after studying for some time, if we are all Brahman, then who is enjoying, who is suffering, who wants liberation, who is the one going from lifetime to lifetime? It's this one here, Vijnanamaya Atma. The individualized sentient being. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. One undivided, limitless reality. in all beings, appearing as if divided into countless beings. This so-called appearing as if divided into countless beings, as if, not really divided. Atman is still one, limitless Brahman. But this appearance, this is the Vijnanamaya Atma. This is the one who does karma, who gets the results of karma, and who will take up multiple new bodies one after another. But not in the case of this enlightened one. What will happen? This Vijnanamaya Atma will fade back into Brahman. The Vijnanamaya Kosha will fade back into Maya, or the subtle body, that is the cosmic mind, and the pure consciousness, the reflected consciousness will as if fade back into pure consciousness. Shankaracharya gives examples, 2 examples. Many pots seem to enclose space. The space within the pot is called Ghatakasha, enclosed space. And limitless space is called Mahakasha, the great space. Mahakasha, great space. Enclosed limited space, Ghatakasha. As you can well imagine, the enclosed limited space can be small, can be big, depending on the size of the pot, can be round, can be various narrow, various kinds. It looks very different depending on the shape of the enclosing pot. But really at no point has space ever been enclosed. You cannot enclose space. It's not like you can fill water in a pot and carry it, the water will go with the pot. Wherever you take the pot, the water will go. But space is not like that. When you enclose space in a pot and you carry it along, do you think the space in the pot is going with the pot? Not at all. It is pot traveling through space. Space does not go in the pot. Space, therefore, is not divided, enclosed, or cut off by a pot. But it seems to be. Certainly, it seems to be. Sri Ramakrishna said, make 10, have 10 pots and then name them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then very soon you will start thinking of those 10 spaces as different. This is number 1, that's number 2, that's number 3. It isn't. It's the same space and it's not affected at all by the pot. So that's one example that Shankaracharya gives. When the pot is broken, it is as if the limited space, so-called enclosed limited space within the pot merges, quote unquote, merges with the vast space. Ghatakasha merges in the Mahakasha. The limited pot space merges in the limitless vast space. As if, not really. It's always been the vast space. Similarly, Vijnanamaya Atma, individual sentient being. If you take away the mirror, what will happen to the reflected face? If you take away the mirror, what will happen to reflected face? You might say reflected face will disappear, or a rather poetic way of putting it will be reflected face goes back, merges in the real face. That way. What happens to the reflected consciousness if you take away the reflecting Vijnanamaya Kosha? The reflected consciousness will merge back into the vast consciousness. The second example is also very beautiful. Shankaracharya gives that sun reflected in the water. Sun reflected in the water. So there's the vast real sun. And that's reflected in the water as a tiny little sun. If you take the water away, then what will happen to the reflected sun? Poetically, you may say it merges back with the real sun. Similarly, Vijnanamaya Atma, what does it do? It merges back. Pare Abhyaye, Pare in the transcendent, Nirguna Brahman. Abhyaye, the unchanging, which distinguishes it from everything else earlier. Karma is always changing. Vijnanamaya, the intellect sheet, always changing. And the reflected consciousness also changing. You see, when you are awake, when you dream and you go to sleep, the reflected consciousness appears, fades out, disappears, again reappears. So reflection is always affected by the reflector. If you have one kind of mirror, you will see your face in one way. If you have a convex mirror, another way, face will be reflected. Concave mirror, another way, face will be reflected. Dirty mirror, polished mirror, your same face will be reflected in many different ways. So they are always changing. Reflected consciousness, the reflector, but Abhyaya, unchanging, is the real Brahman, which is called in this Upanishad Akshara, the undecaying. What is it? Para. Pare Abhyaya. Para means transcendent, beyond space, time, and causation, beyond any attribute. What we call in Vedanta Nirguna Brahman, attributeless, absolute, the vast beyond any attribution. It sounds very abstract and far off. No, it isn't. It's you. You are that attributeless absolute. And that is the reality, and you are that reality. Pare abhyaye. What happens? Sarve or sarva eki bhavanti. They all become one. They are all one. The one only exists, and that's realized, that only one exists. But the language is one of merging. It is as if the physical aspects will merge in the physical universe, or in Vedantic language, they merge into Virat, the physical, the cosmic body of God, which is the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Very dramatic, poetic description. Our mentality, our minds, memories, all of that, we merge back into Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind. And our causal body, the Anandamaya Kosha, will merge back into Maya. And our karma also merges back into Maya, our accumulated individual karmas. What happens to me, the individual sentient being? What happens? Will I be lost? No. You merge back like the reflected sun merging back into the original sun, like the enclosed pot space merging back into vast space. Basically, the vast space always existed, the real sun only existed. And you realize you are that one. All very dramatic, cosmic language, something amazing is happening. But if you ask the enlightened one, so is your physical body merging into cosmic body? Is your mind merging into cosmic? It's none of that. And Brahman always was, is, will be. Yeah. All of these are movies. You're referring to the movie. It's good to see it from both sides. This is from our side, and that's from the enlightened one's side. Pare abhyaye sarve eki bhavanti. They all become one. Shankaracharya uses very soaring, dramatic language for this merging with Brahman, becoming one. You, the individual sentient being, you realize that you are Brahman. How is that like? What's that merging like? Shankaracharya writes, Pare abhyaye, in that transcendent, undecaying reality, Brahman. And then he gives descriptions. Anante, but these are all negative descriptions. Yeah? Limitless, ananta, without any limit. Akshaye, without any decay. Brahmani, in Brahman. Brahman, which is limitless, not limited in time, not limited in space, not limited by object. Akashavat, Akashakalpe, almost, it's like space. What's your nature? Your nature is like space. Then a string of pointers. Aje, Ajare, Amrite, Abhaye, Apurve, Anapare, Anantare, Abhahye, Advaye, Shive, Shante. Very beautiful. He says, this Brahman, what is it like? Like space. Oh, how? Aje, unborn, and not born. Ajare, not, Jara is old age, so not subject to old age or decay. Amrite, immortal, not subject to death. Abhay, in the fearless. Your nature as Brahman is the fearless. Apurve anapare, that which has no precedent and no consequent. That means beyond causality, beyond karma, basically. There is no karma for you which will give rise to any result of karma. No cause, no effect. Anantare, there is no gap. What do I mean by gap? Where will the universe exist? You say, what about the universe? What about people? What about body, mind, life? Where there is no space for them, because the only reality is Brahman. In Hindi, they say, Thas bharpur, packed tight with existence, consciousness, bliss. Where is even the tiniest space for a universe to, anything different to exist? For a universe to exist, for sentient beings, for karma, for enjoyment, suffering, the drama of life. There is no space. Only Brahman exists. It's packed tight like the most solid rock. And yet, this is the magic of Maya. The whole universe appears exactly as it is now. So, he says, Anantari, without any interior. In interior, there is nothing. Abhaya, there is no distinction between inner and outer. It's just packed tight with Brahman. Advay, non-dual, in the non-dual. Non-dual means Even when the entire universe is appearing, even when billions of creatures are appearing, being born and dying, it seems like that. None of it is appearing. They're all like a mirage. They're all like a dream. They're all like a magic show. What is that? Shiva. Shiva here means in the auspicious, in the blissful, Paramanande, in the utterly blissful. Shanti. Shanti here means beyond all suffering, every possibility of. So Shanti literally means quiescent or the cessation of the universe. Shanta, the universe, silence of the universe. I'd like to translate it this way. The universe is silenced, although it's appearing. Shanti, Shive Shanti would be, which means Paramanande and Atyadika Dukkha Nivritto, in which all sorrows completely cease. The cessation of all sorrows, the attainment of endless, limitless bliss. Let me read out Shankara's. It's one word. It's one word. He's explaining Pare Abhyaya in the transcendent undecaying. Everything merges into you, the sentient being, you merge into the transcendent undecaying. How does he explain it? Anante Akshaye Brahmani Akashakalpe Aje Ajare Amrite Abhaye Apurve Anapare Anantare Abahye Advaye Shive Shante. Sarve Eki Bhavanti. They all become one. Everything becomes one in what sense? Visheshatam Gachanti. Avisheshatam Gachanti. They lose their distinguishing characteristics as Brahman. But the display of the universe will continue. Just as you can watch a full movie, at the same time, you know it to be nothing but the screen. Ekatvam apadyante. They all attain to oneness. Swami Vivekananda said, Vedanta is basically these two things, the divinity within us and the oneness of all existence. That divinity within us means you that divinity, and the oneness of all existence means you that oneness of all existence. You realize you are that, you remain as that. And then Shankaracharya says, Jaladhyadhara apanaya eva suryadi pratibimbaha surye. Just as if you remove the water, the reflected sun merges back into the real sun. So-called merging back. If you ask the sun, so did your reflection merge back into you? The sun will say, what reflection? I'm the one who's always been shining. And then second example, ghatadhyapanaye eva akashe ghatadhyakashaha. Just as if you remove the pots, you break the pots, the enclosed spaces will merge back into the vast space, which it always was actually, but it seems to be, right? So the individual sentient being that you were, who played out this drama of countless lives, you, quote unquote, merge back into your real nature as limitless consciousness. Okay. Then a beautiful mantra comes next, giving the example of rivers flowing into the sea. Here, this is sort of adaptation from Prashna Upanishad. Again, you see, Prashna Upanishad also has the same kind of language. But very beautiful mantra. Eighth mantra. Yata nadya syandamana samudre astam gachanti nama rupe vihaya tatha vidwan nama rupad vimukta paratparam purusham upaiti divyam. Just as all these rivers flow continuously into the ocean and become one with the ocean, give up their individual names, shapes, and courses, they become one. What are they called? Ocean. Before that, Mississippi and so many rivers, you call Athabasca and so many rivers, and Hudson here, or Ganga, Yamuna, and all of that. But in the ocean, it's ocean. They all become one in the ocean. Namarupe vihaya, discarding their erstwhile names and forms. They become one with the ocean. Similarly, tatha, exactly like that. That's an example. Just like that. Vidwan, the enlightened one. The one who has realized, I am Brahman. Nama Rupad Vimukta, being freed from name and form. Paratparam. Para is Ishvara. Paratparam is that which is beyond Ishvara, beyond God also, the absolute, the Godhead, Brahman. the existence, consciousness, bliss. Purusham upayati, attains to that state, that being, which is even beyond God. What is that? Divyam, the shining, pure consciousness. Again, attains, quote unquote. The enlightened one just realizes I've always been that. And everything, in fact, is that. In fact, everything, chairs, tables, they are all not chairs, tables, birds, animals. They are that parat param, purusham, divyam, limitless consciousness. Then he sums up the results in the ninth mantra. Sayo havai tat paramam brahma veda brahmaiva bhavati nasya brahmavit kule bhavati tarati shokam tarati papmanam guhagrantibhyo vimukta amrito bhavati. Very beautiful and compact. What happens? This is again about videha mukti, bodiless liberation. Same topic is continuing. Sayo havai tat paramam brahma veda brahmaiva bhavati. The knower of Brahman attains Brahman. This is again and again quoted by Shankaracharya throughout the commentaries. Brahma veda brahmaiva bhavati. The knower of Brahman is Brahman or becomes Brahman only. Brahma eva. One might say becomes? Yes, figurative language. You thought you were a limited and sentient being. Now you realize you are unlimited, pure consciousness, the one existence in this universe. How do you do that? Brahma Veda, by knowing Brahman. What is this by knowing Brahman? Shankaracharya explains, Aham Brahmasmi. He says, Brahma Veda, Sakshad Ahamevasmi. Brahma Ahamevasmi. So he says, that transcendent Brahman, Sakshad Ahamevasmi. I am this Brahman. I am Brahman only I am. Not body, not mind, plus something called Brahman. No, I am Brahman only. And nothing but Brahman. Not body, mind. And Brahman is nothing but me. That's also what thing, it's a stunning claim to make. You are that absolute, and who, where, what is that absolute? Well, I am that absolute, but all of these people are also that absolute. No, 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 not even that. You are that absolute, and that absolute is you. The real you, of course. So, when you realize that, you realize I am Brahman. The language here is the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman only. Then, the result of that, Nasya, one of the results, interesting comment, Nasya abrahmavit kule bhavati. Literally, it means in such a one's family, there is no non-knower of Brahman. So, what it means is, if two cases, if the teacher is like Shaunaka and Angira's householder, a Grihastha Brahmagyani, then Kula might mean literally family. So in your family, the enlightened one's family, there will be, the others will also get Brahmagyana. Will they all become enlightened? Technically, no, but they are definitely, they will get spiritual evolution by the company of the enlightened one, the Brahmagyani. So in their own family. But Kula also means the teaching lineage. So if the Brahmagyani, just like Rishi, Angiras, they were householders, and Shaunaka, the student, is a householder, but Shaunaka is a student of the Rishi. So the student of the Rishi, of the master, also becomes enlightened. They become Brahmagyani, knowers of Brahman, those who have realized that they are Brahman. Literally, it means there will be no non-knower of Brahman in the family or the teaching lineage of this master. If they are monastic teachers, then it means only teaching lineage. Now, it's very interesting. Swami Vivekananda, after the monastery was started, and he set up the Ramakrishna Math, our order. Of course, originally it starts with Sri Ramakrishna. But Swami Vivekananda said, this order will, as forever, from now on, will never lack Brahmagyanis. There will be, in every generation, there will be some who will be enlightened, Brahmagyani. This is the blessing of Vivekananda on this particular order. There will be Brahmagyanis in every generation. So it doesn't mean everybody will become Brahmagyani right now, but all the time, in this particular teaching tradition of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition, there will be Brahmagyanis. And this is Upanishadic. This comes from the Upanishad. Na asya kule Abrahmavit bhavati. So that's also a more reasonable way of looking at it. Not that everybody in the teaching tradition will become enlightened, not so fast, but there will never be a lack of enlightened masters. There will always be some in every generation who will be fully enlightened. And that's really true. We always find not only the great masters of the past, but now also there are spiritual masters who are enlightened. Abrahmavit kule bhavati na asya abrahmavit kule bhavati. And the enlightened one, what does he or she gain out of this? Tarati shokam tarati papmanam guha grantibhyo vimukto. The one who is freed from guha granthi. Guha means heart. Granthi means knot. The knot here means ignorance. When the knot of ignorance is cut, you realize I am Brahman. You're free of the knot of ignorance. Then you're freed of kama, desire. Freed from kama, tarati papmanam. You're freed of sin. Here, papa means papa punya, merit and demerit. All karmas will disappear, as we read. And then tarati shokam, you go beyond suffering forever. Cross over the ocean of suffering. Cross over tarati papmanam. Cross over the ocean of sin. Guha grantibhyo vimukta. How? When you cut the knot of ignorance. Oh, how do I cut it? With the weapon of Vedanta. The Upanishad said, Upanishadam Mahastram, the great bow of Vedanta. Pick it up and place on it the sharpened mind. You know, we did that bow and arrow meditation earlier. Amrito bhavati, become immortal. Become immortal means you are immortal. This is the goal of spiritual life. Then the 10th mantra is an instruction, a manual for teaching. So now you are enlightened. Rishi Angiras has been teaching Shaunaka, and we hope by now Shaunaka is enlightened. And now Angiras is telling Shaunaka, if you wish to pass on this knowledge, some caution. Whom are you going to teach? 10th mantra. Kriyavanta shrotriya brahmanishtaha swayam juhata ekarshim shraddhayantaha tesham evesham brahma vidyam vadeta shirovratam vidhivad yaistu chirnam. Only to those qualified, you have to be qualified. Who is qualified? Those who have purified their minds, those who have sharpened or focused their minds, and are dedicated to Vedanta. These are the 3 conditions. We have already done this. Purification of mind through karma yoga, focusing of mind through bhakti and dhyana, meditation, upasana, and jnana. Ultimately, this knowledge will be given by shravana, manana, nididhyasana, jnana yoga. So basically, the one who has purified oneself by leading an ethico-religious life, that person is the fit recipient for this knowledge. Kriyavantaha, engaged in ritualistic action, what you call puja part. We had this interesting talk on the direct path by Greg Good here last week. So he teaches the direct realization that you are Brahman. That talk will be uploaded, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. But I don't know how many noticed, if you listen to that, partway through the talk, he said, if you feel it's not working, that realization, who am I may understand it, then we complain, either I don't get it, or I get it, but it's not having any effect on me, my life still remains the same, I don't get the peace and joy which was promised. Or I do get it, but then I lose it. In the class I understand, or in meditation I understand, when I get into action, I lose it. Such complaints will be there. So he said that if it does not seem that the direct path is working, you should worship God. And the language he used was very interesting. It surprised me. He said you should worship Durga. But what it means, worship Shakti. Once, Ma Sharada sent word to Swami Brahmananda. This was in Banaras. Ma Sharada sent word to Swami Brahmananda, ask him, why should one worship Shakti? So somebody went and asked, that mother is asking you, why should one worship Shakti? Because remember, who is he talking to? To a monk, Swami, whose whole goal is God realization. So you want God realization. You want this, Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti, and all these things. Why worship Shakti? And Brahmananda answered, Mayer hate Brahmagyaner chabikati. The keys of Brahmagyana are in the hands of the mother. So actually, everything is in the hands of the mother. Whatever you want in this world is in the hands of the mother. Well, I don't want anything in the world. I am a spiritual seeker. I am a monk. What do you then? What is your goal? Enlightenment and freedom. That too is in the hands of the mother. The samsara is in the hands of the mother, and freedom from samsara is in the hands of the mother. Because Brahman, nothing is in the hands of Brahman. Brahman is entirely useless. Because Brahman is already beyond samsara. So your freedom from bondage into samsara, into moksha, going to moksha, freedom, attainment of Brahman, that also requires the grace of Shakti. Anyway, Kriyavanta, worshipful, Shrotriya, who is well versed in Vedantic study, Brahmanishtaha. Brahmanishta here does not mean, the guru is said to be Brahmanishta, who is centered in Brahman. Here, Brahmanishta means the one who is dedicated to the worship of God. You will find in India the traditional Advaitins, both monks and Grihasthas, they not only do Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, study of Vedanta, reflection on Vedanta, meditation, but they also have a devotional practice. They almost all of them have a mantra japa. They have an Ishta Devata and like a chosen form of God, and then a mantra associated with it. They do that. This is the meaning of Brahmanishtaha. Shankaracharya explains, Saguna Brahma. So Advaita Vedanta is not against theism. Rather, it is a kind of supra-theism. Devotion to God, faith in God, religious life, all very good, all highly recommended. And here is making it a condition. Such persons you can teach Vedanta. Swayam juhata ekarshim shraddhayantaha. Those who practice this fire sacrifice, a particular fire sacrifice has been mentioned here, ekarshi. That does not mean that we have to practice. It is just a placeholder. It means a person who does his or her religious observances. Then, tesham eva esham brahma vidyam vadeta. To such a one, and it gives one more condition. Shirobratam vidhivad yaistu chirnam. Those who do the fire sacrifices. There is one particular fire sacrifice in which Shirovrata literally means fire on your head. What it means is a part of the ritual is they put the fire in a pot and the performer carries it on the head around the Vedi where the homa is performed, the fire sacrifice is performed. It's a particular ritual. It doesn't mean we have to do that. It means that you must have your own practice, quite apart from all the direct path and non-dual teachings. See, if someone might, at this point, a very radical non-dualist might say, isn't it enough if I realize I am Brahman? It is, but if you're complaining, then this is where we are lacking. Vivekananda says, I know where the shoe pinches. The fourfold qualification, why it is important. These are the ones which will give the fourfold qualification for Vedanta. Otherwise, we'll hear endless complaints. I've heard so many talks, I've studied this, I've even got it, but then it is only intellectual knowledge. Or sometimes I am peaceful, but when I engage with the world, I forget it. Or it comes in meditation and open my eyes, it's gone. So Ramakrishna says, what kind of God is this? When you close your eyes, the God is there. You open your eyes, God is not there. What kind of God is that? So it all shows lack of preparation. The problem is not with the Vedantic teaching or the Upanishad. The problem is with our lack of preparation. That's why this preparation is necessary. Ethical life, religious life, and then non-dual teaching. Conclusion of the Upanishad. 11th mantra. Tadetat satyam rishi rangira purovacha naitadachirno vrato vadhite namah paramarishibhyo namah paramarishibhyah. This truth was taught by the Rishi Angira to the disciple Shaunaka. Remember the beginning of the Upanishad? Shaunaka had gone to the Rishi. So he concludes now. Purovacha, in the hoary past, far back in the ancient past. Upanishad itself, which will be like 5,000 years old, it says in the far back in the ancient past, this was taught by Angira. How ancient this tradition is. It's the oldest spiritual living tradition in the world. Again, warning, do not teach this to people who are devoid of ethical and religious practices. It's not to be done. Misuse. Sri Ramakrishna gives a warning. This path of non-dual realization is powerful and direct, but the danger is this. The danger is equally there. The danger is, Sri Ramakrishna says, bhave bujhe niyeche, আর মাঝে মাঝেই পতন, ভারী ভয়ঙ্কর. They think just because they have understood something, they have attained enlightenment. And then they keep slipping in that path. This is terrible. And all of this because of the lack of preparation. The emphasis should be on ethical life and religious practices so that we get the fourfold qualifications. And the Vedantic teachings are there. Then the Vedantic teachings will take hold immediately. What one sadhu said, Pachta nahi Mahatma ji, pachta nahi. You're unable to digest it, oh monk. You're unable to digest it. Indigestion is the result of direct dose of non-dual teachings. For that, you should not teach it directly to people who are not ready. Namah Paramarishibhya, Namah Paramarishibhya. Salutations to the great transcendent rishis, masters. Salutations to the masters. This repetition shows that the text is completed. Let me do a peace chant. And then I will give a jai. Our tradition is, once you complete these texts, you give, a chant of victory to Sri Ramakrishna, Ma Sharada, Swami Vivekananda, like that. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai. Jai Mahamai ki Jai. Jai Swami Ji Maharaj Ji ki Jai. Okay, I go to the chat first. Atmananda Krishna Menon, direct path, is said to have stated, when a jnani takes to activities of life, he comes out with body, senses, or mind whenever he needs them, and he acts to all appearances like an ordinary man, but knowing full well all the while that he is the reality itself. This is not said from the level of the absolute. Yes. So, from the level of the absolute, the whole of this universe is like a mirage, like a magic show. Like optical illusion. But does that mean, what about the enlightened one? Can you not act? Can you not do your duties in this world? Can you not do stuff in this world? Of course, the enlightened ones do so much. We see they're sometimes much more effective and active than us. So one way of looking at it is this is one step below the absolute perspective. You are pure consciousness. And in you, pure consciousness, appears a mind, that's this particular mind, and a set of senses, and this body, and the particular samsara surrounding you. Now, you as pure consciousness go into this samsara and you act. A good example is, nowadays in virtual reality, you can enter into the virtual reality. In those environments, there's something called avatar. They've taken from Vedanta, the term. Avatar means your presence in that virtuality. So just like that, the enlightened one enters into this display in this body and mind and acts. But this is one step below the absolute perspective. The absolute perspective is one limitless ocean of consciousness alone exists. While seeing the world, not in samadhi, while seeing the world. But the world is like a magic, like an illusion, like an optical illusion, or like a dream. Sanket says, is it possible to dissolve the subtle body as being generated by the physical body? Will Advaita philosophy still hold with only physical body and Atman Brahman? Then will there be no Janma transfer? No, it's not possible, because the manifestation is from causal to subtle to physical. So causal body first, then subtle body, then physical body. You cannot have a physical thing without the corresponding subtle aspect of it. The subtle may be there without the physical. The causal may be there without subtle and physical. That is in Mahapralaya, in the cosmic dissolution. Only Ishvara exists with the causal, which is with Maya. And there is no physical universe, there are no jivas, it's all merged back into Maya. But the opposite is not possible. You can't have a physical universe without the causal aspect of it, or subtle aspect of it. Please spell the three bodies. Physical body is Sthula Sharira, physical body. S-T-H-U-L, Sthula Sharira. Subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, S-U-K-S-H-M-A, Sukshma Sharira, S-H-A-R-I-R-A, Sharira. And causal body, Karana Sharira, K-A-R-A-N-A, Karana Sharira. But they're all bodies, they're not you. The problem is we think we are those things. It's like foolishness, like somebody thinking, if I started thinking I am this shirt. No, I'm not. Rick says, how does the ego ahankara fit into the pancha kosha model? The ahankara emerges in the vijnanamaya kosha, the ego, sense of ego, it comes there. Article about dying brain, yeah. I think it was, I read it in the Guardian. I think there was a long report. Very interesting. That the sudden energization of the dying brain, that something's happening and then it stops. Something is left. What part of the subtle bodies retains, accumulates, and stores the life experiences body to body? It's called the chitta, the storehouse, where vasanas, all impressions are stored from the past. Dying people are known to relieve their memories. That might explain the... Yes, so why are they relieving memories at that point? Why is the brain expanding, a dying brain expending so much? How does it have those capacities? Normally, when we are awake, we are healthy, we can't do that. But when you're dying, how will the brain, why does it do so? Clearly, it is doing something very intense. But why is it doing that? And how? Neelaji says, Buddhist philosophy explains transmigration. It's a huge topic, but basically, instead of saying there's a subtle body which goes from body to body, they explain it in terms of like waves arising and falling. So it's all momentary. It's like, when there's a rope and you shake the rope, you will see a wave going from one end to the other. It's not that something is actually traveling from one end to the other. At each point, it arises and then it falls. So like that. A series is generated. Instead of one thing going from this body to other body, a series is generated. But otherwise, it's very similar to the Hindu idea, Hindu or Jain idea.